In the quiet town of Oakridge, where autumn leaves whisper secrets and pain lingers longer than winter snow, they underestimated a broken man's capacity to heal. By the time they understood their mistake, everything had already changed forever. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. The rain fell in gentle sheets across the weathered brick of Oakridge Elementary School, droplets racing down windowpanes like tears. Inside classroom 27, Benjamin Hayes gathered papers from his desk with methodical precision, his movements betraying none of the storm raging within him. The classroom clock ticked past 4:30 p.m., marking another day survived rather than lived. At 42, Benjamin's once boyish face had hardened into something more somber. Silver threads wove through his dark hair at the temples, premature souvenirs from the grief that had hollowed him 3 years earlier, when cancer took Eliza, leaving him alone in a house built for a family they'd never have. The children in his 5th grade class provided temporary respite from solitude, but when the final bell rang, the silence returned, faithful as a shadow. "Working late again, Ben?" Principal Maureen Delacourt stood in the doorway, her kind eyes carrying the practiced concern of someone who'd watched a colleague slowly disappear into himself. "Just getting ahead on next week's lesson plans," Benjamin replied, the lie slipping out easily after so many repetitions. Maureen sighed, recognizing the deflection. "The community center board meeting starts in 30 minutes. You promised you'd come this time." Benjamin had indeed promised, one of many social commitments. He'd agreed mainly to stop people from worrying. 3 years of well-meaning casseroles and invitations hadn't filled the Eliza-shaped void in his life, but they had taught him the right words to say to keep concerned friends at bay. "I'll be there," he said, gathering his worn leather satchel and rain jacket. The Oakridge Community Center occupied what had once been the town library, a stately Victorian building with high ceilings and tall windows that gleamed like gold in the fading afternoon light. Inside, the usual suspects had gathered: town council members, business owners, and community leaders, all nodding politely as Benjamin slipped into a seat at the back of the room. "As I was saying," continued Mayor Thornton, a portly man with perpetually flushed cheeks, "the state's new guardianship program presents an interesting opportunity for Oakridge. We've been asked to participate in their pilot initiative." Benjamin half listened as the mayor explained the program, something about providing temporary homes for displaced young people until permanent arrangements could be made. His attention drifted until a particular case drew him back to the discussion. The most pressing situation involves a 17-year-old girl currently being held at Westbridge Institute, the mayor said, his voice lowering. "She was found living in deplorable conditions with relatives after her parents died in a house fire. The authorities believe she witnessed the tragedy, which seems to have rendered her mute. She hasn't spoken a word since they found her 6 months ago." The room stirred uncomfortably. Oakridge was a town that prided itself on community spirit, but taking responsibility for a traumatized teenager was beyond what most had envisioned when they'd joined the board. "Mute, you say?" asked Eleanor Winters, the town's longest-serving council member. "Does that mean she's slow?" Mayor Thornton shook his head. "The reports indicate she's highly intelligent. The doctors believe her silence is psychological, not physical or intellectual. She communicates through writing when she chooses to, which isn't often. What happens if no one takes her?" Benjamin found himself asking, surprising both himself and the room. He rarely spoke at these meetings. "She remain institutionalized until she turns 18, at which point she'd be released without support or resources," the mayor replied. "The state's overcrowded foster system has little to offer older teens, especially those with challenges." The meeting continued with discussions about fundraising initiatives and the upcoming Harvest Festival, but Benjamin couldn't focus. The girl's situation had lodged in his mind like a splinter. As the gathering concluded, he found himself approaching Mayor Thornton. "This guardianship program," Benjamin said quietly. "How would someone apply?" The mayor's eyebrows shot up in surprise. "You're interested, Ben. It's a significant commitment. The girl would live with you until they find permanent placement or until she turns 18. "I have the space," Benjamin replied, thinking of the empty bedroom that had once been intended for a child, "and I have experience with young people." "It's not quite the same as teaching fifth graders," Maureen interjected, having overheard. "This girl has serious trauma. She needs specialized care." Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Which she clearly isn't. "Getting at Westbridge," Benjamin countered. "Look, I'm not saying I'm the perfect solution, but I have a stable home and enough patience to provide a temporary situation that's better than an institution." The mayor studied Benjamin thoughtfully. "I'll have the paperwork sent over tomorrow. There would be a home inspection, background checks, the usual proceedings for fostering, though this is technically a different program." As Benjamin walked home through the damp evening, he questioned his impulsive offer. What did he know about caring for a traumatized teenager? His house had become a shrine to Eliza, preserved exactly as she'd left it, down to her coffee mug still sitting on the kitchen counter. It wasn't a place designed for healing. Yet something about the girl's situation had pierced the protective numbness he'd cultivated. A child who had lost everything, who had retreated into silence rather than face her pain. Wasn't that a reflection of his own response to grief, just expressed differently? The guardianship application process moved with surprising speed. Bureaucratic wheels greased by the state's eagerness to place difficult cases. Within 2 weeks, Benjamin found himself driving the 70 miles to Westbridge Institute, a sterile facility surrounded by chain-link fencing that looked more prison than hospital. Dr. Elena Kapoor met him in the lobby, a slim woman with intelligent eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. "Mr. Hayes, I must be frank with you. Lily Winters is one of our more challenging cases. Her silence is absolute. No speaking, no laughing, not even crying audibly, though we've sometimes found evidence of tears. She communicates only through writing, and rarely at that." "Has she been like this since the fire?" Benjamin asked. "According to reports, yes. She was found in her uncle's home 3 days after her parents' funeral. The conditions were concerning, signs of neglect, possibly abuse, though Lily has never confirmed this through her writing. Child Services intervened, but with no other family willing to take her and her communication challenges, placement options were limited." Dr. Kapoor led Benjamin through stark corridors to a small meeting room. "She knows you're coming. I've explained that you're offering temporary guardianship, a place to stay until more permanent arrangements can be made. Don't expect much response initially." Benjamin nodded, his throat suddenly dry. What had seemed noble in theory now felt presumptuous. Who was he to think he could help this girl when professionals had failed? The door opened, and Lily Winters entered the room. She was tall for 17, almost Benjamin's height, with a slender frame that spoke of missed meals rather than natural build. Her hair fell in a dark curtain around a pale face dominated by eyes so deeply brown they appeared almost black. Alert, intelligent eyes that assessed Benjamin with the wariness of someone who had learned to expect disappointment. "Lily, this is Mr. Hayes," Dr. Kapoor said. "He's the teacher from Oakridge who has offered to become your guardian." Benjamin extended his hand automatically, then withdrew it when Lily made no move to accept the greeting. "Hello, Lily. I'm Benjamin Hayes. I teach 5th grade at Oakridge Elementary." Lily's expression remained unchanged, but her eyes flickered over his face, cataloging details with an intensity that made Benjamin feel strangely exposed. Dr. Kapoor placed a notepad and pen on the table between them. "Lily, do you have any questions for Mr. Hayes?" The girl made no move toward the writing materials. Instead, she continued her silent assessment of Benjamin, who found himself fighting the urge to fill the uncomfortable silence. "I have a house. About 3 blocks from the school," he said. "It's nothing fancy, but there's a spare bedroom with its own bathroom. It gets good morning light." He paused, aware he was rambling. "I've lived in Oakridge my whole life. It's a small town, quiet. Mostly, people mind their business but help when needed." Still no response. Dr. Kapoor gave Benjamin an encouraging nod. "I lost my wife 3 years ago," he continued, surprising himself with the admission. "Cancer. We didn't have children. I'm not looking to replace anyone in your life, Lily. I just thought maybe we could help each other out for a while. A safe place to stay, that's all I'm offering." For the first time, something shifted in Lily's expression, not softening exactly, but a subtle change that suggested his words had registered. She reached for the notepad and wrote a single sentence in precise, elegant handwriting. "Why would you want someone broken in your home?" The question hit Benjamin like a physical blow. Not because it was accusatory, but because it revealed how Lily saw herself: damaged goods, unwanted. "I don't believe you're broken," he said carefully. "Changed by what happened to you, certainly, but not broken. And maybe I understand something about carrying loss." Lily studied him for a long moment, then wrote again. "I don't need fixing." "Good," Benjamin replied, "because I'm not qualified to fix anyone. I'm just offering a roof, meals, and a place where no one will force you to be anything other than who you are right now." Something in his answer must have satisfied her, because Lily closed the notepad and gave a single, almost imperceptible nod. Dr. Kapoor, who had been observing their exchange with professional interest, smiled slightly. "Well, that's settled then. Mr. Hayes will need you to sign some additional paperwork. Lily, why don't you go pack your things while we handle the administrative details?" After Lily left, Dr. Kapoor handed Benjamin a thick folder. "Her medical history, psychological evaluations, school records, everything we have. She's very bright, Mr. Hayes. Before the tragedy, she was on track for academic scholarships. She still completes all assigned schoolwork with exceptional results, despite her refusal to participate verbally. Will she attend Oakridge High? That's the plan. We've arranged for accommodations given her communication preferences. The school counselor has been briefed." Dr. Kapoor hesitated. "There's something else you should know. Lily's uncle, her only living relative, has been trying to regain custody." Benjamin frowned. "The same uncle she was removed from?" "Yes, Richard Winters. He's Lily's father's brother. He's claiming temporary negligence due to his own grief and financial difficulties, which he says are now resolved. The courts haven't been sympathetic so far, but he's persistent. You should be prepared for the possibility of legal challenges." An hour later, Benjamin helped Lily load her meager possessions into his car, one small suitcase and a backpack, the sum total of her physical existence. The rain had stopped, leaving the world washed clean and gleaming. As they drove away from Westbridge, Benjamin glanced at his silent passenger, noting how she kept her gaze fixed forward, refusing to look back at the place that had been her home for the past 6 months. The drive to Oakridge passed in silence, but it wasn't as uncomfortable as Benjamin had expected. There was something almost peaceful about sharing space with someone who didn't demand conversation, who seemed content to watch the landscape transform from industrial outskirts to rolling farmland to the dense maple forests that surrounded Oakridge. As they entered the town limits, Benjamin found himself pointing out landmarks: the old clock tower that still chimed every hour, the town square with its gazebo where summer concerts were held, the ice cream parlor that had been serving the same 10 flavors since 1952. Lily didn't respond, but he noticed her taking everything in, those observant eyes missing nothing. When they finally pulled into the driveway of his Victorian-style home, with its wraparound porch and gabled roof, Benjamin felt a sudden wave of self-consciousness. The garden beds Eliza had so lovingly tended were now overgrown. The porch swing where they'd spent summer evenings slightly askew from disuse. "It needs some work," he admitted as he carried Lily's suitcase up the front steps. "I haven't been much for home maintenance these past few years." Inside, the house was clean but frozen in time. Eliza's touches everywhere, from the hand-painted kitchen tiles to the collection of antique teacups displayed in the dining room. Benjamin led Lily upstairs to what would be her room, a space that had once been designated as a nursery before they learned Eliza couldn't have children. "The bathroom is through that door," he explained, setting down her suitcase. "Clean towels in the cabinet. I wasn't sure what colors you'd like, so I kept things neutral." The room was simple but comfortable. A twin bed with a handmade quilt, a desk beneath the window that overlooked the backyard maple tree, a bookshelf half filled with young adult novels Maureen had suggested might appeal to a teenage girl. Lily stood in the center of the room, her expression unreadable as she took in her new surroundings. After a moment, she pulled a notebook from her backpack and wrote, "Thank you. May I be alone now?" "Of course," Benjamin said, backing toward the door. "Dinner will be ready around 6, but come down whenever you're comfortable. The house is yours to explore." That first evening established a pattern that would hold for the next several weeks. Lily kept mainly to herself, appearing for meals and responding to direct questions with written notes, but otherwise maintaining her silence and distance. Benjamin respected her boundaries, neither pushing for conversation nor treating her silence as something that needed to be fixed. At school, Lily integrated into Oakridge High with minimal disruption. Her teachers reported that she completed all assignments with exceptional quality, though she never participated in class discussions. She didn't make friends, but neither was she bullied or ostracized, something about her self-contained dignity seeming to command, if not friendliness, at least a certain respect from her peers. Benjamin found himself adjusting to her presence with surprising ease. Having another person in the house should have felt like an intrusion after years of solitude, but Lily moved through spaces with such quiet consideration that she never felt like an imposition. In fact, he began to appreciate the subtle signs of her existence. A different book on the living room coffee table each evening, the scent of the lavender shampoo she preferred lingering in the hallway, the sound of her sock feet on the hardwood floors. Small changes began appearing around the house. One morning, Benjamin came downstairs to find the kitchen counters had been cleared and wiped clean, including the spot where Eliza's coffee mug had sat untouched for 3 years. His first instinct was panic until he spotted the mug placed carefully on a small shelf near the window, where morning light caught its blue glaze. The message was clear. Honoring memory didn't require preserving it in amber. Another day, he returned from school to discover the front garden beds had been weeded, the tangled overgrowth removed to reveal perennial plants still stubbornly pushing through the soil. In the center of the dining table sat a small arrangement of early spring wildflowers in a mason jar, the first decorative touch the house had seen since Eliza's death that hadn't been her creation. These silent gestures of care affected Benjamin deeply. Lily wasn't trying to erase Eliza's presence or replace her touch. She was simply creating space for life to continue alongside memory, something Benjamin had been unable to do for himself. One evening, about a month after Lily's arrival, Benjamin was grading papers at the kitchen table when she appeared in the doorway, notebook in hand. She placed it before him, open to a page filled with her careful handwriting. "My parents were professors, literature and history. Our house was full of books and ideas and conversation. When they died, everything went quiet. My uncle didn't like noise, or questions, or me. When I stopped speaking, he said I was being manipulative. The social workers thought I was traumatized. Maybe both were right. But now it's been so long. I don't remember how to start again, or if I want to. Does my silence make you uncomfortable? Benjamin read the note twice, recognizing the courage it had taken to share even this much of her story. No, he answered honestly. Your silence doesn't make me uncomfortable. Everyone copes with loss differently. After Eliza died, I talked. Too much. To her photos, to empty rooms, sometimes even to her clothes still hanging in the closet. Maybe we're just opposite sides of the same coin. Lily considered this, then wrote again. What was she like? No one had asked Benjamin about Eliza in a long time. People in town already knew her, or thought they did, and new acquaintances tended to avoid the topic of his deceased wife, afraid of causing pain by bringing up her memory. She was. Benjamin paused, searching for words that could capture the essence of the woman he'd loved for 15 years. She was alive in a way most people aren't, fully present in every moment. She taught art at the community college and saw beauty everywhere, in peeling paint, in the pattern frost makes on windows, in the way light falls across ordinary things. Lily nodded, encouraging him to continue. She laughed easily and cried just as easily, at commercials, at sunsets, at particularly moving passages in books. She felt everything so intensely. Benjamin smiled at a memory. She used to say I was her anchor, keeping her from floating away on her emotions. But the truth is, she was my sail, catching winds I would never have felt on my own. That night marked a turning point in their relationship. Though Lily remained silent, her written communications became more frequent and personal. She began leaving notes for Benjamin, observations about books she was reading, questions about Oakridge's history, even the occasional dry joke about school or the quirks of small-town life. In turn, Benjamin found himself sharing more of his own thoughts and memories, not just about Eliza but about his childhood in Oakridge, his journey to becoming a teacher, his dreams and disappointments. Their evening conversations, conducted through a blend of his speech and her writing, became something he looked forward to each day. Spring advanced into early summer, bringing with it longer days and the end of the school year. Benjamin noticed subtle changes in Lily, her posture less defensive, her expressions more varied, her willingness to accompany him on errands around town. She still didn't speak, but her silence no longer felt like a wall, more like a personal choice that didn't prevent connection. One Saturday morning in June, Benjamin was sorting through boxes in the attic when he came across Eliza's old camera, a high-quality digital SLR she'd used for her art projects. On impulse, he brought it downstairs to where Lily was reading. On the porch swing, "Do you have any interest in photography?" he asked, holding out the camera. Eliza always said this was too good to sit unused. Lily looked surprised but took the camera carefully, examining its features with interest. She wrote, "I don't know anything about photography." "Neither do I," Benjamin admitted. "But the great thing about digital is you can experiment without wasting film. Eliza used to say the camera helps you see the world differently, notice details you might otherwise miss." That afternoon, they walked through Oakridge Park together, Lily tentatively at first, then with growing confidence, photographing anything that caught her interest: the pattern of bark on an old oak tree, a child's abandoned red shoe beneath a bench, the reflection of clouds in a puddle from the previous night's rain. When they returned home and downloaded the images to Benjamin's laptop, he was stunned by what he saw. Lily had an innate sense of composition, an eye for finding beauty in unexpected places, exactly as Eliza had. But her perspective was uniquely her own, often focusing on contrasts, light and shadow, smooth and rough, natural and man-made. "These are remarkable," he told her honestly. "You have a genuine talent." Lily ducked her head, unused to praise, but the pleased flush on her cheeks revealed her pride. She wrote, "Could we do this again?" "As often as you'd like," Benjamin promised. Photography became their shared hobby, weekend excursions taking them beyond Oakridge to nearby forests. lakes, and eventually to the city 70 miles away, where architecture and street life provided new subjects for Lily's growing portfolio. Benjamin found himself rediscovering the world through her lens, seeing beauty in places he'd stopped noticing years ago. These outings had another unintended effect. They made Benjamin visible in the community again. Friends and neighbors, who had grown accustomed to his absence from social events, now encountered him regularly, with Lily quietly by his side. Invitations increased, to barbecues, to the town's 4th of July celebration, to Eleanor Winter's famous summer garden party. To Benjamin's surprise, Lily indicated willingness to attend these gatherings. She remained silent, but her notebook allowed limited interactions, and people gradually adapted to her communication style. Benjamin watched with quiet pride as she navigated these social situations with growing confidence, no longer defining herself solely by her trauma. This evolving peace was shattered on a sweltering day in late July, when Benjamin opened the front door to find a well-dressed man with Lily's eyes standing on his porch. "Mr. Hayes, I'm Richard Winters, Lily's uncle and only living blood relative. I believe you have something that belongs to me." Richard Winters stood on the porch like an unwelcome shadow, his expensive suit and polished shoes marking him as someone unaccustomed to Oakridge's casual way of life. Despite the family resemblance to Lily, the same dark eyes, the same high cheekbones, there was something cold in his expression that set Benjamin's teeth on edge. "Mr. Winters," Benjamin said carefully, not stepping aside to invite the thought man in. "This is unexpected. I'm sure it is." Richard's smile didn't reach his eyes. "The state has been less than forthcoming about my niece's whereabouts. Fortunately, small towns harbor few secrets." Benjamin felt a protective instinct rising within him. Lily is at school. "Summer session. On a Saturday?" Richard raised an eyebrow. "I think not. Perhaps we could continue this conversation inside, unless you have something to hide." Before Benjamin could respond, he felt a presence behind him. Lily stood in the hallway, her face drained of color, her hands gripping the doorframe so tightly her knuckles had gone white. Her eyes, usually so carefully guarded, now blazed with an emotion Benjamin had never seen in her before: fear. "Ah, there she is." Richard's voice softened to something almost gentle, but Benjamin didn't miss how Lily flinched at the sound. "Hello, Lily, you're looking well. Better than the last time I saw you." Benjamin shifted subtly, placing himself more firmly between Richard and the doorway. "As you can see, Mr. Winters, Lily is safe and well cared for. If you'd like to discuss matters concerning her, we can arrange a meeting with the appropriate social services representatives." Richard's expression hardened. "That won't be necessary. I've already been in touch with the state. My petition for restoration of guardianship has been filed. I'm simply here to inform Lily personally and to see the conditions in which she's been placed." "Guardianship was transferred legally," Benjamin said, fighting to keep his voice level. "Lily is 17. Her preferences are taken into consideration." "Preferences?" Richard's laugh was sharp. "The girl doesn't speak. How can she express preferences? Besides, blood ties supersede temporary arrangements. I'm her only family." Benjamin felt a light touch on his arm. Lily had moved beside him, her notebook in hand. She wrote quickly and held it up for both men to see. "I'm not going back with you, ever." Richard's face darkened. "Still playing these games, I see. The silent treatment may work on strangers, Lily, but I know better. This is just another one of your manipulations." Benjamin had heard enough. "Mr. Winters, I think you should leave now. Any communication regarding Lily's guardianship should go through proper legal channels." "Don't think this temporary arrangement gives you any rights," Richard said, his voice low. "She's a Winters. She belongs with family, not with some small-town teacher playing house. Goodbye, Mr. Winters." Benjamin closed the door firmly, then turned to find Lily trembling, her face ashen. "He can't take you," Benjamin assured her, though he wasn't entirely certain this was true. "The guardianship is legal. You're safe." "Here." Lily shook her head frantically, scribbling in her notebook. "You don't know him. He always gets what he wants." "Not this time," Benjamin promised, though concern gnawed at him. Richard Winters had resources and determination, a dangerous combination. "We'll fight this, Lily, together." That evening, after Lily had retreated to her room, Benjamin called Maureen Delacourt, who served not only as school principal but also on the state education board. Her connections might provide insight into Richard's claims. "He has filed for restoration of guardianship," Maureen confirmed after making several calls. "He's claiming the emergency removal was an overreaction, that his home situation has improved, and that family placement is in Lily's best interest." "You should have seen her face when she saw him, Maureen. She was terrified." "Has she ever indicated why?" "Any specifics about her time with him?" Benjamin sighed. "No. She's communicated that he didn't want her there, that he didn't like noise or questions, but nothing explicitly abusive." "That's the problem," Maureen said grimly. "Without specific allegations, it becomes her word against his. And in the eyes of many judges, blood relation carries significant weight." "So what do?" "We do? Document everything. Lily's progress, her integration into the community, her educational achievements. Get statements from her teachers, her school counselor, anyone who can speak to her well-being in your home, and Ben. Prepare her for the possibility that she might have to testify in whatever way she can." The next few weeks took on the character of a siege. Richard Winters made his presence felt throughout Oakridge, meeting with town officials, introducing himself at local businesses, presenting himself as a concerned uncle fighting for his orphaned niece. His story of a man overwhelmed by grief and sudden responsibility, who had made mistakes but was now ready to provide properly for his brother's child, resonated with many who didn't know the full circumstances. Benjamin found allies too. Maureen rallied the school staff, who provided glowing reports of Lily's academic progress. Eleanor Winters, no relation to Richard, a fact she emphasized pointedly, used her position on the town council to counter Richard's influence with local officials. And most surprisingly, many of Lily's classmates came forward with statements about how she had begun to participate in group projects and activities, communicating through notes and even occasional smiles. Through it all, Lily remained outwardly calm, continuing her schoolwork and photography. But Benjamin noticed signs of strain, dark circles under her eyes, a return to the hypervigilance she'd shown in their early days together, a tendency to startle at unexpected noises. She carried her notebook everywhere now, as if afraid of being caught without her voice. One night, Benjamin found her sitting on the back porch steps, staring up at a sky scattered with stars. He settled beside her, careful to leave space between them. "Couldn't sleep?" he asked gently. She shook her head, then wrote, "If he wins, I'll run away." "Let's not think about that yet," Benjamin said, though the same fear had kept him awake many nights. "We have good people supporting us." She wrote again, her pen pressing hard into the paper. "He's not who people think he is. After the fire, after my parents died, he took everything. Their insurance money, my college fund, even my mother's jewelry. Said it was to cover my expenses, but he resented every dollar spent on me." This was more than she'd ever revealed about her uncle. Benjamin chose his words carefully. "Lily, if there were specific incidents, things that would qualify as abuse or neglect, that would strengthen our case significantly." She stared at the notebook for a long time, then wrote, "He never hit me. That would leave evidence. He just made sure I understood I was unwanted, that I was a burden, a problem to be solved." Benjamin's heart ached. Emotional abuse left no visible bruises but cut just as deeply. "That's still abuse, Lily, and it's still wrong." She nodded slightly, then wrote something that chilled Benjamin to the bone. The night before social services came, he told me if I ever told anyone about the money, he would make sure I disappeared. People go missing all the time, he said. Especially troubled teens. Lily, Benjamin breathed. This is serious. This is a threat we can report. She shook her head vehemently, writing, no proof, just my word. Who would believe the mute girl over the successful businessman? I believe you, Benjamin said firmly. And we'll find a way to make others believe too. The court hearing was scheduled for mid-August, a sweltering day that found Benjamin and Lily dressed in their best clothes, sitting beside a court-appointed attorney in the county courthouse. Richard Winters sat across the aisle with his legal team, two polished attorneys from the city who exuded confidence and expense. The judge, a stern-faced woman named Harriet Chen, reviewed the case files with methodical care before addressing the courtroom. This is a guardianship matter concerning Lily Winters, a minor. I understand there are competing petitions for guardianship, one from the current court-appointed guardian, Benjamin Hayes, and one from the blood relative, Richard Winters. Is that correct? Both attorneys confirmed this was accurate. Before we proceed, Judge Chun continued, I want to be clear about my priorities in this case. The welfare of the minor is my only concern, not adult convenience, not family reputation, not even traditional notions of family structure. I will hear evidence from both sides and make my determination based solely on what I believe will best serve Lily's interests. Richard's attorney presented first, painting a picture of a devoted uncle who had struggled with unexpected guardianship during his own period of grief, who had made mistakes but had since created a stable, financially secure home environment for his niece. Richard himself testified with apparent sincerity about his desire to provide Lily with the advantages his brother would have wanted for her: private education, cultural opportunities, connections that would secure her future. And why do you believe Ms. Winters stopped speaking after coming into your care? Judge Chun asked directly. Richard's expression conveyed practiced sadness. The trauma of losing both parents so violently affected her deeply. I sought professional help, but perhaps I was too wrapped up in my own grief to recognize the severity of her condition. I blame myself for not doing more sooner. When it was their turn, Benjamin's attorney presented evidence of Lily's progress. School records, statements from teachers and community members, photographs of Lily participating in town events. Benjamin testified about the small but significant steps she had taken toward healing. Her photography, her increased willingness to engage with others, the trust they had built together. Mr. Hayes, Judge Chen asked, what would you say has been the most significant change in Lily since she came to live with you? Benjamin considered carefully. She's starting to build connections again, to people, to places, to activities that bring her joy. She's finding ways to express herself that don't require speech. Most importantly, she's beginning to trust that she has value beyond what she can say or do, that she matters simply because she exists. Judge Shun nodded thoughtfully, then addressed the courtroom. I'd like to speak with Lily privately in my chambers. This is standard procedure in cases involving minors, to ensure they can express their preferences without feeling pressured by adult presence. Richard's attorney immediately objected. Your Honor, given Ms. Winters' communication limitations, we request that a neutral interpreter be present. Ms. Winters communicates effectively through writing, Judge Chun replied firmly. I believe we can manage without additional parties. This is not negotiable, Counselor. Lily followed the judge with visible trepidation, her notebook clutched to her chest like armor. Benjamin watched her go, sending silent prayers that she would find the courage to tell her truth. 20 minutes passed before they returned. Lily's eyes were red-rimmed, but she walked with her head high. She took her seat beside Benjamin, who noticed her hands were steady as she placed her notebook in her lap. Judge Chun returned to the Bench, her expression unreadable. Having reviewed all evidence and testimony, including my private conversation with Ms. Winters, I'm prepared to render my decision. She looked directly at Richard. Mr. Winters, your petition for restoration of guardianship is denied. Richard's face darkened, but Judge Chun continued before he could speak. Furthermore, I am referring this case to the District Attorney's Office for investigation into potential financial improprieties regarding the disposition of Alexandra and James Winters' estate, specifically the insurance proceeds and trusts established for their daughter's benefit. The courtroom erupted in murmurs. Richard leaned forward urgently, whispering to his attorneys, whose expressions had shifted from confidence to concern. "Silence," Judge Chun commanded. "Mr. Hayes, your petition for continued guardianship is granted, with the provision that it will be reviewed upon Lily's 18th birthday, at which point she may choose her own living arrangements. This court remains concerned about certain allegations that emerged during my conversation with Ms. Winters, and a separate investigation will be conducted regarding those matters." As they left the courthouse, Richard intercepted them on the feu steps, his face contorted with barely controlled rage. "This isn't over," he hissed at Benjamin. "You've turned her against her own family, made her believe lies about me." "The judge heard the truth," Benjamin replied calmly. "That's all that matters. You think you've won? You're nothing but a temporary solution, a placeholder. She's damaged goods, Hayes. Once you realize that, you'll discard her just like everyone else." Before Benjamin could respond, something extraordinary happened. Lily stepped forward, positioning herself between Benjamin and her uncle. Her face was pale but determined as she opened her notebook and held up a message she'd prepared. "In advance, he is more family to me in months than you were in years. I choose him." Richard's expression twisted with fury. "You ungrateful little—" "That's enough," Benjamin interrupted, placing a protective hand on Lily's shoulder. "It's over, Mr. Winters. Respect the court's decision and leave us alone." For a moment, Richard looked as though he might say more, but the courthouse security guard had taken notice of the confrontation and was moving in their direction. With a final venomous glare, Richard turned and stormed down the steps to where his expensive car waited. The drive home passed in contemplative silence. Benjamin could sense Lily processing the day's events, and he gave her the space to do so. It wasn't until they were back in their kitchen, the familiar surroundings providing a sense of safety, that she wrote, "Thank you for fighting for me." "Always," Benjamin replied simply. She hesitated, then wrote, "What the judge said about investigating. Does that mean he might go to jail? I don't know. If he misappropriated your parents' insurance money or your trust fund, there could be legal consequences. But that's for the authorities to determine now. Our job is to focus on moving forward." Lily nodded, then surprised him with another note. "I told the judge everything. About the money, about the threats, about how he made me feel worthless." Benjamin felt a surge of pride. "That took incredible courage, Lily. It felt good," she wrote, "to be believed." As summer transitioned into fall, life settled into a new rhythm. Richard Winters disappeared from their lives as suddenly as he had appeared, reportedly relocating to the West Coast as investigations into his financial dealings intensified. The threat of his presence lifted, allowing both Benjamin and Lily to breathe more freely. Lily's photography continued to flourish. With Benjamin's encouragement, she submitted several pieces to a regional student art exhibition and was selected as a featured artist, an achievement that brought color to her cheeks and a rare, genuine smile to her face. Benjamin helped her frame her best work, transforming the previously empty walls of their home with images that captured the world through her unique perspective. School began again, with Lily now a senior facing decisions about her future. College brochures accumulated on the dining room table. Art schools, liberal arts colleges, state universities with strong visual arts programs. Benjamin helped her research scholarship opportunities, conscious that her financial situation remained uncertain pending the outcome of investigations into her parents' estate. One crisp September evening, as they sat on the porch steps reviewing application essays Lily had drafted, Benjamin broached a subject that had been on his mind. "You know," he said carefully, "when you turn 18, the guardianship technically ends. But I want you to know that this home remains yours for as long as you want or need it. Through college, after college, whatever comes next." Lily looked at him with surprise, then wrote, "You would want that? Me staying?" "Of course," Benjamin said, realizing as he spoke that nothing had ever felt more certain. "Lily, these past months, you've brought life back into this house. Into me. I was just existing before you came, going through motions, but not really living." She considered this, then wrote with uncharacteristic hesitation, "I feel the same. Before, even before the fire, I never felt seen, not completely. My parents loved me, but they were busy with their careers, their research. Then after, with my uncle, I was just a problem to solve. But you see me, even without words." The autumn evening wrapped around them, comfortable in its growing chill. Above, stars emerged one by one, pinpricks of light in the deepening blue. A sense of possibility filled the air, not the frantic energy of new beginnings, but the quiet confidence of paths discovered through difficulty and chosen with care. Lily wrote again, her pen moving thoughtfully across the page. "Sometimes I think about speaking again, testing my voice to see if it still works. It's there whenever you want it," Benjamin said. "But there's no rush. You communicate beautifully as you are." She nodded, then wrote something that Benjamin would treasure in the years to come. "I lost my voice because words seemed pointless in a world where no one was listening. I'll find it again when I have something that needs to be said out loud. Until then, thank you for hearing my silence." As darkness settled fully around them, Benjamin realized with sudden clarity that what had begun as an act of charity, taking in a traumatized, silent girl, had transformed into something far more profound. In trying to provide Lily with a home, he had inadvertently rebuilt his own. In attempting to help her heal, he had found his way back to life. The future remained unwritten. College decisions, career paths, the question of whether Lily would ever speak again. But for the first time since Eliza's death, Benjamin found himself looking forward with anticipation rather than dread. Whatever came next, they would face it together. This unlikely family forged not through blood, but through the more enduring bonds of understanding, respect, and love. The first snow of winter dusted Oakridge like powdered sugar, transforming the town into a scene from a holiday card. Benjamin stood at the classroom window, watching his fifth graders explode onto the playground for recess, their excited shrieks carrying through the glass as they discovered the fresh snowfall. Their unbridled joy reminded him of how much had changed in his own life over the past 7 months. At home, Lily was preparing for her final round of college applications. Her photography portfolio had drawn interest from several prestigious art schools, including the Rhode Island School of Design and Pratt Institute in New York. The thought of her leaving for college brought Benjamin both pride and a quiet sadness. Their home had finally become exactly that. There's a shared space where both had found healing. The prospect of it returning to silence next fall sat like a stone in his stomach. "There's something else in the first snow, aren't they?" Maureen Delacourt appeared beside him, coffee mug in hand. Like they've never seen this stuff before, despite living in a town that gets buried in it 5 months a year. Benjamin smiled. That kind of wonder gets lost somewhere along the way to adulthood. "Speaking of wonder," Maureen said, "I saw Lily's exhibition at the community center. Those photographs are extraordinary, Ben. She has a genuine gift." "She does," he agreed, unable to keep the pride from his voice. "The college recruiters think so too." Maureen studied him over the rim of her mug. "And how are you feeling about that? Her potentially moving away?" "Proud," he said automatically, then added more honestly, "and terrified. Not for her. She'd thrive wherever she goes. But the thought of the house without her in it." "You've come a long way from the man who used to avoid these conversations," Maureen observed. "The one who changed the subject whatever feelings came up." Benjamin couldn't deny it. Lily's presence had broken open something within him, creating space for emotions he'd kept carefully walled away since Eliza's death. "She saved me as much as I saved her, maybe more. That's how family works," Maureen said simply. "The real kind, anyway." The word family followed Benjamin home that afternoon, echoing in his mind as he pulled into the driveway. Legally, he and Lily existed in the formal framework of guardian and ward, a temporary arrangement with a clear expiration date. But, in all the ways that mattered, they had become something else entirely. A family built on choice rather than obligation, on understanding rather than blood. Inside, he found Lily at the dining room table, surrounded by papers and her laptop. She'd taken to wearing her dark hair pulled back in a neat ponytail while she worked, revealing the fine structure of her face that was maturing from adolescent softness into the defined features of a young woman. Sometimes Benjamin caught glimpses of who she would become, confident, perceptive, quietly determined, and the vision always left him with bittersweet pride. She looked up as he entered, offering a small wave of greeting. Her notebook lay open beside her, but she'd been typing rather than handwriting. The speed of digital communication had become necessary as her academic work grew more demanding. "How's it going?" he asked, setting down his satchel and peering at the application form on her screen. "Parsons School of Design? That's in New York City, right?" She nodded, then typed quickly on a text document she kept open for conversations. "Their photography program is among the best, but the application fee is steep." "Don't worry about the fees," Benjamin assured her. "Apply anywhere you want to go. We'll figure out the financial part." She hesitated, then typed, "There's been news from the lawyer about my parents' estate." Benjamin tried to keep his expression neutral. The investigation into Richard Winter's handling of his brother's affairs had been ongoing for months. Complex legal process that had revealed layers of financial impropriety. What did they find? Lily turned her laptop toward him, displaying an email from the attorney assigned to her case. Benjamin read it carefully, his eyes widening at the contents. The courts had recovered a significant portion of Lily's inheritance, life insurance proceeds, academic trust funds, and even personal property that Richard had liquidated for his own benefit. While some assets were gone forever, what remained would cover her college education and provide a substantial foundation for her adult life. "Lily, this is wonderful news," Benjamin said, genuinely happy that she would have this security. She nodded, but her expression remained troubled as she typed. "The money means I can go anywhere. Choose any school without worrying about cost. Isn't that what you wanted?" Her fingers hovered over the keyboard for a moment before she typed, "Yes, but now it's real. Now I have to decide if I'm brave enough to leave Oakridge. To leave home." Home, the word carried such weight, such history. For Lily, home had been lost in flames, then twisted into something cold and threatening in her uncle's house, before finally finding its true meaning in the haven they'd created together. "Being brave doesn't mean not being afraid," Benjamin said gently. "It means doing what you need to do despite the fear. And home will always be here for you to come back to." She looked up at him, her dark eyes questioning, seeking reassurance beyond his words. "This is your home, Lily," he said firmly. "No matter where you go or how long you're gone, this place will be waiting for you. I will be waiting for you." Her shoulders relaxed slightly, and she typed, "I've been thinking about something. A way to make it official." "Official?" She took a deep breath, then typed rapidly, as if afraid she'd lose courage. Adoption. I know I'll be 18 in a few months, but legally, it would make us family. Permanently. If you wanted that. Benjamin stared at the screen, momentarily speechless. The possibility had never occurred to him that adult adoption was an option. That Lily might want to formalize their relationship beyond the temporary guardianship that circumstances had created. You want me to adopt you? He asked, his voice catching. She nodded, then typed with uncharacteristic uncertainty. Only. If you want to. I understand if it's too much. Too much? Benjamin shook his head, emotion welling up unexpectedly. Lily, nothing would make me prouder than to call you my daughter in every sense of the word. But are you sure? Your parents, she was already typing, would want me to be happy. To be part of a family again. You've given me that, Benjamin. A place where I belong. That evening, they contacted a family law attorney to begin the adult adoption process. It would take time, paperwork, court appearances, legal notifications, but the decision itself felt immediate and right. Recognition of the truth they had been living for months. As December settled more deeply over Oakridge, bringing with it holiday preparations and end-of-semester activities, Benjamin found himself reflecting on the approaching anniversary of Lily's arrival. Nearly 7 months had passed since he'd impulsively offered to become her guardian. 7 months that had transformed both their lives in ways neither could have anticipated. The house itself stood as physical testimony to this transformation. Where once it had been a mausoleum to Eliza's memory, preserved in painful stasis, it now pulsed with present-tense life. Lily's photographs adorned walls that had been bare. For years, books and magazines accumulated on coffee tables, evidence of minds engaged with the world. The refrigerator door displayed school announcements, exhibition flyers, and college acceptance letters alongside takeout menus and grocery lists, the ordinary ephemera of shared existence. Even Eliza's presence had shifted, no longer a ghost, haunting empty rooms but a warmly remembered part of the home's history. Benjamin had finally sorted through her belongings, donating what needed to be passed on and meaningfully preserving what mattered most. Her studio in the sunroom, which had remained untouched since her death, now served dual purpose as Benjamin's reading retreat and Lily's photography workspace, a room where creativity continued to flourish, just as Eliza would have wanted. One afternoon, a week before Christmas, Benjamin arrived home to find Lily in the kitchen, attempting something he'd never seen before. She was baking. Flour dusted the countertops, and the air smelled of vanilla and cinnamon. She looked up with an expression caught between embarrassment and determination, then grabbed her notebook. Found Mom's recipe cards in the attic. Hope that's okay. Of course it's okay, Benjamin said, surprised and touched. What are you making? Sugar cookies, from your wife's recipe. For Christmas. Benjamin moved closer to examine the handwritten recipe card, recognizing Eliza's flowing script. These were her grandmother's recipe. She made them every Christmas. He smiled at a memory. The year we got married, she burned the first batch. So badly we had to open all the windows in December. The house smelled like charcoal for days. Lily's eyes crinkled at the corners, her version of laughter. She wrote, "These might not be much better." First attempt. "I'm honored to be your test subject," Benjamin said, genuinely moved by her gesture. Need any help? They spent the evening baking together, Benjamin sharing stories of Christmases past while Lily expertly photographed their creations. Both the picture-perfect cookies and the comically misshapen ones. It struck Benjamin that this was something families did, passed down recipes, created traditions, built memories layer by layer like the frosting they were applying to the cookies. That night, after Lily had gone to bed, Benjamin sat alone. In the living room, looking at the small Christmas tree they had decorated together. The ornaments were a mixture of his and Eliza's collection from their years together and new ones he and Lily had purchased. creating a visual timeline of his life's chapters. The tree lights cast a soft glow across the room, illuminating Lily's latest photographs hanging on the wall. Winter scenes of Oakridge, captured with her unique eye for beauty in ordinary moments. Benjamin's thoughts drifted to the adoption paperwork sitting on his desk upstairs. The legal process was underway, moving at the glacial pace of all bureaucratic endeavors. But the emotional reality had already taken hold. Lily was his daughter in all the ways that mattered. He had been given a second chance at family, at fatherhood. Something he'd thought forever lost after Eliza's diagnosis had closed that door. The universe, it seemed, had strange and wonderful ways of fulfilling dreams, even when they arrived in unexpected packages. Christmas morning arrived with fresh snow and the particular stillness that comes when the world seems to pause collectively. Benjamin woke early, a habit from childhood he'd never outgrown. He moved quietly through the house, brewing coffee and stoking the fire in the living room before settling into his favorite chair with a book. An hour later, he heard Lily's soft footsteps on the stairs. She appeared in the doorway looking younger than her nearly 18 years. Her hair tousled from sleep, wearing the flannel pajamas and thick socks that had become her winter uniform. "Merry Christmas," Benjamin greeted her. "Coffee's fresh." She nodded gratefully and disappeared into the kitchen, returning moments later with a steaming mug clutched between her hands. She settled cross-legged on the floor near the Christmas tree, her notebook within reach though not immediately opened. They had agreed to keep gifts simple, something meaningful rather than expensive, and as they exchanged packages, Benjamin appreciated the thoughtfulness behind Lily's selections. She had given him a beautifully bound journal with a handwritten note explaining it was for recording the stories he often told about his childhood in Oakridge, his years with Eliza, the family history that deserved preservation. His gift to her was equally personal. A vintage film camera he'd found at an antique shop in the city, restored to working condition by a specialist. "Digital is practical," he explained as she examined it with reverent hands. "But there's something special about film. About the patience it requires, the commitment to each shot, the anticipation of what you've captured." Lily's eyes shone as she carefully tested the camera's mechanisms. She reached for her notebook. "It's perfect. Thank you." Benjamin hesitated, then added, "There's one more thing, but it's not exactly a gift, more of a development." Her expression turned curious as he retrieved an envelope from his desk drawer. "This arrived yesterday," he explained, handing it to her. "I was going to wait, but it felt right for today." Lily opened the envelope carefully, pulling out an official document from the county court. Her eyes scanned it quickly, then widened. As she comprehended what she was holding, preliminary approval of the adoption petition, with a court date set for the following month for final proceedings. She looked up at Benjamin, her face transformed by emotion so powerful it seemed to radiate from within. Without reaching for her notebook, without any written words to bridge the gap between them, she did something she had not done in the 7 months they had lived together. She moved toward him and wrapped her arms around his neck in a fierce embrace. Benjamin returned the hug gently, then more securely as she held on, feeling the slight trembling of her shoulders that suggested tears she wouldn't allow to fall. When she finally pulled back, her expression was one he had never seen before, a kind of determined peace, as if some internal struggle had finally found resolution. She reached for her notebook, but instead of writing immediately, she simply held the pen above the paper, hesitating. Benjamin waited, sensing that something significant was happening in this silent moment. Finally, she set down the pen and looked directly at him. Her lips parted slightly, and in a voice rusty from disuse but clear in its intention, she spoke her first words in over a year. "Thank you, Dad." The sound seemed to hang in the air between them, 3 simple syllables that rewrote everything. Benjamin felt his own eyes fill with tears, overcome by the magnitude of what had just occurred, of the trust implied in those first chosen words. "You're welcome, daughter," he replied, his voice thick with emotion. That moment marked a turning point, though not an instantaneous transformation. Lily's return to speech came gradually, words emerging tentatively at first, short phrases. Spoken in the safety of their home, her voice gaining strength and confidence with each passing day. She still carried her notebook, still preferred writing for complex thoughts or in situations that made her anxious, but the silence had been broken. By the time her 18th birthday arrived in late January, followed shortly by their court date for the adoption finalization, Lily's voice had become a regular presence in their home. It was softer than Benjamin had imagined, thoughtful in its cadence, often pausing as she searched for just the right word, a reflection of how carefully she had been listening during her silent months. The day of the adoption hearing dawned. Bright and cold, sunlight reflecting blindingly off the snow that blanketed Oakridge. Benjamin and Lily dressed formally for the occasion, he in his best suit, she in a deep blue dress that highlighted the newfound confidence in her posture. Judge Chen, the same judge who had ruled against Richard Winters months earlier, presided over the hearing. She remembered them, greeting Lily with particular warmth. "Ms. Winters, it's good to see you again. I understand there have been significant developments since our last meeting." "Yes, Your Honor," Lily replied, her voice soft but steady. "I've found my voice again, and my home." The judge smiled. "I'm delighted to hear both. And you're certain about this adoption? You understand that legally, Mr. Hayes will become your father, with all the rights and responsibilities that entails?" "I'm certain," Lily said without hesitation. "He already is my father in all the ways that matter. This just makes it official." The proceedings were brief but profoundly moving. When Judge Chun signed the final order and announced, "From this day forward, legally and in all other respects, Lily Winters is now Lily Hayes, the daughter of Benjamin Hayes," Benjamin felt a sense of completion he'd never thought to experience again after Eliza's death. Outside the courthouse, snow was falling again, adding fresh powder to the existing drifts. Benjamin and Lily, now legally father and daughter, stood for a moment on the steps, watching the flakes swirl in the winter light. "Are you ready to go home?" Benjamin asked. Lily nodded, then added with the hint of a smile, "Yes, let's go home, Dad." As they drove through the familiar streets of Oakridge, Benjamin glanced occasionally at his daughter, still marveling at the unlikely path that had brought them to this point. A year ago, he had been a man defined by loss, living in the shadow of what might have been. Now he was driving home with his daughter, planning for college visits and graduation ceremonies, discussing summer travel possibilities and the future. Renovation of the sunroom to better accommodate her photography work. Life had not replaced what was lost. Eliza would always be a cherished part of his history, just as Lily's parents remained in her heart. But life had offered something unexpected, the chance to build something new from the broken pieces. Something beautiful and strong in its imperfection. As they pulled into the driveway of the house that had transformed from shrine to home, Benjamin was struck by a realization. The greatest gift he and Lily had given each other wasn't protection, or security, or even family status. It was permission to begin again. To take the shattered pieces of the past and create something new, without betraying what came before. "What are you thinking about?" Lily asked, noticing his contemplative expression as they entered the warm house. "About new beginnings," answered honestly. "About how sometimes the hardest step is just allowing yourself to take it." She considered this, then said in her thoughtful way, "For a long time I thought silence was the only power I had. The only thing no one could take from me. But then I realized it had become a prison instead of a protection. And now?" Benjamin asked. "Now I understand that true strength isn't in what we withhold, but in what we choose to give. My voice, my trust, my heart." She smiled, the expression transforming her serious face. "You taught me that, Dad. By example." In that moment, standing in the entryway of their shared home with snow melting from their boots and the future stretching before them in all its messy, glorious uncertainty, Benjamin understood something fundamental about healing. It wasn't about forgetting the wounds or pretending they never existed. It was about growing around them, incorporating them into a new whole that was stronger for having been broken and mended. The widowed teacher and the mute girl cast out by family had saved each other, not through grand gestures or dramatic interventions, but through the quiet miracle of daily presence, through the simple, profound act of seeing each other clearly and choosing to remain, through the courage to believe that what was broken could become beautiful again in a different form. As evening settled over Oakridge, father and daughter moved through their home with the comfortable rhythm of family, preparing dinner, discussing the day's events, planning for tomorrow. Their voices, one weathered by grief and renewal, one fresh with rediscovery, filled the rooms that had once echoed with silence. The greatest blessing, Benjamin reflected as he watched Lily photograph the winter sunset from their porch, wasn't that they had found each other in their brokenness. It was that they had recognized in each other the capacity to be whole again. Spring arrived in Oakridge like a painter with an endless palette, washing away winter's monochrome with bursts of color, daffodils pushing through softening soil, forsythia exploding in yellow brilliance, cherry trees releasing their pale pink confetti with each breeze. Benjamin stood on the front porch, coffee mug in hand, watching the transformation with newfound appreciation. After years of merely noting the change of seasons, he now felt them again, deeply and completely. Inside the house, Lily moved around. The kitchen preparing breakfast before school, her movements confident, her occasional humming a reminder of how far they had come. The months since the adoption had unfolded in a series of small miracles. Lily's gradual return to speech, her blossoming social connections at school, and most recently, the arrival of acceptance letters from art schools across the country. The largest envelope, bearing the prestigious letterhead of the Rhode Island School of Design, now held a place of honor on the refrigerator door, anchored by a magnet shaped like a camera that Benjamin had bought to celebrate. RISD had not only accepted Lily, but had offered her a substantial scholarship in recognition of her extraordinary portfolio. The path forward was clear, even as it led away from Oakridge. "Dad, you're letting all the bugs in," Lily called from the kitchen, her voice carrying the lightness of early morning energy. Benjamin smiled and stepped back inside. The word "Dad" still created a warm expansion in his chest each time she said it, a feeling he suspected would never diminish no matter how many years passed. "Just admiring the cherry blossoms," he explained, settling at the kitchen table where Lily had laid out plates of whole-grain toast, scrambled eggs, and fresh fruit. "When did you become such a morning person? Ms. Davidson says artists need to understand morning light," Lily replied, referring to her photography teacher who had become something of a mentor. "She says dawn reveals the world differently than any other time." "Wise woman," Benjamin agreed, watching his daughter pour orange juice with the graceful economy of movement that characterized everything she did. At 18, Lily had blossomed into a young woman of striking presence, not conventionally beautiful perhaps, but arresting in her quiet intensity, her thoughtful gaze, her careful attention to the world around her. "The graduation announcements arrived yesterday," she sighed, nodding toward a package on the counter. "I thought we could address them this weekend. Graduation." The word hung between them, acknowledged but not fully explored. For Benjamin, it represented both immense pride and the beginning of a necessary separation. For Lily, it marked the culmination of her remarkable academic recovery and the threshold to a future that once seemed impossible. "I was thinking," Benjamin said carefully, "about a graduation gift, something beyond the usual watch or luggage set." Lily looked up, curious. "You don't need to get me anything special. You've already given me everything that matters." This would be for both of us, actually. Benjamin took a breath, realizing how much he wanted her to embrace his idea. What would you think about a road trip this summer? Before you head to Providence for school. We could take the scenic route east, visit some national parks, maybe stop at a few art museums along the way. Lily's face brightened immediately. Really? How long would we be gone? 3 weeks, maybe 4. I've already spoken to Principal Delacourt about taking extended leave. We could leave right after graduation and take our time, make some memories before. He didn't finish the sentence, didn't need to. Before everything changes. Before our daily life together ends. Before you begin your next chapter without me. I love it, Lily said simply, reaching across the table to squeeze his hand. And Dad, it's not an ending. You know that, right? It's just a plot development. Benjamin laughed at her literary reference, grateful once again for her perceptiveness. A plot development. I like that much better. As they finished breakfast and prepared to leave for their respective schools, him to his 5th graders, her to her final semester of high school, Benjamin reflected on how thoroughly their lives had intertwined. What had begun as a temporary arrangement, a good deed born partly from his own loneliness, had transformed into the most significant relationship of his life since Eliza. Parenthood had come to him through an unexpected door, but once inside, he had discovered it was exactly where he was meant to be. The weeks leading up to graduation passed in a blur of activity. Lily's senior photography exhibition at the high school drew an impressive crowd, including representatives from local galleries who expressed interest in her work. She had developed a distinctive style, finding beauty in overlooked corners of ordinary life, capturing moments of genuine human connection amid everyday scenes, revealing the extraordinary within the commonplace. Your perspective is remarkable, the curator from the Oakridge Art Center told her, studying a particularly striking image of elderly hands intertwined on a park bench. You see what others miss. Benjamin, overhearing this comment, thought. It perfectly captured not just Lily's artistic gift but her approach to life. She had always seen what others missed, the value in a silent teacher mourning alone in a too-empty house, the possibility of family where others might have seen only a temporary arrangement of convenience, the strength in vulnerability when the world mistook her silence for weakness. Graduation day dawned clear and perfect, as if the universe itself wanted to celebrate. Benjamin woke early, his emotions a complex tangle of pride, nostalgia, and anticipation. He moved quietly through his morning routine, giving Lily extra time to sleep, knowing the day ahead would be long and emotionally charged. When she finally appeared in the kitchen, wearing her favorite jeans and t-shirt that would soon be hidden beneath graduation robes, Benjamin was struck by how grown-up she looked. The frightened silent girl from Westbridge Institute seemed a lifetime ago, though it had been barely a year. "Morning," she said, helping herself to coffee. "Big day, the biggest," Benjamin agreed. "How are you feeling?" She considered the question with her characteristic thoughtfulness. "Grateful," she finally said, "and ready." The ceremony itself was standard high school fare, speeches about futures and potential, the ceremonial turning of tassels, the tossing of caps. But for Benjamin, watching from the audience as Lily crossed the stage to receive her diploma, nothing about the moment felt ordinary. Each step she took represented a victory over circumstances that would have crushed a lesser spirit. When the principal announced, Lily Hayes, emphasizing the surname that connected them legally as well as emotionally, Benjamin felt tears threaten. Beside him, Maureen Delacourt passed a tissue without comment, her own eyes suspiciously bright. "She's extraordinary," Maureen whispered. "And so are you, for recognizing it when others didn't." The reception afterward was held in the school gymnasium, transformed with streamers and punch bowls into a celebration space. Benjamin watched with quiet pride as Lily navigated the social landscape with newfound ease, still reserved by nature, but no longer isolated by silence or fear. She had formed genuine friendships over the past year, connections that had helped heal wounds left by earlier rejection and abandonment. Mr. Hayes. Benjamin turned to find Alina Kapoor standing beside him, elegant as ever in his simple suit. That managed to look both professional and festive. The doctor from Westbridge Institute had kept in touch through Lily's transition, providing occasional guidance and support. "Dr. Kapoor, I didn't know you were coming. Lily invited me," she explained. "I wouldn't have missed it. When I think about the girl who left Westbridge a year ago and the young woman receiving her diploma today, well, it's why I stay. In this often discouraging profession." Benjamin nodded understanding. "I know what you mean. Though I can't take credit for the transformation, can't you?" Dr. Kapoor raised an eyebrow. "Benjamin, do you know how rare it is for someone with selective mutism triggered by trauma to recover their voice so completely, especially after more than a year of total silence? Lily is remarkably resilient. Yes, she is. But resilience needs nurturing soil to flourish. You provided that: safety, patience, unconditional acceptance. Those aren't small gifts." She paused, watching Lily across the room. "Have you ever wondered why you were the one she chose to speak to first? Why those particular words?" Benjamin had indeed wondered. "Thank you, Dad." Such simple words, yet they had changed everything. "Because you earned her trust completely," Dr. Kapoor said, answering her own question. "And in doing so, you made it safe for her to step back into the world of words, the world of connection. That's extraordinary, Benjamin. Don't diminish it." As the reception wound down, Benjamin found himself cornered by Eleanor Winters, Oakridge's unofficial town historian and most persistent gossip. "Benjamin Hayes," she declared, patting his arm with proprietary affection. "Who would have thought, when you showed up at that community center meeting last year, that you'd be standing here today with a daughter? And such a talented one at that." "Life takes unexpected turns," Benjamin agreed diplomatically. "Indeed it does. And speaking of unexpected, have you heard anything more about that awful uncle of hers, Richard?" Benjamin tensed slightly. Richard Winters remained a shadow at the edges of their life, though his legal threats had evaporated in the face of mounting evidence of financial misconduct. "Last I heard, he was facing charges related to embezzlement of Lily's trust fund," Benjamin said carefully. "We try not to focus on it." "Very wise," Eleanor nodded sagely. "Best to look forward, not back. And my, what a forward that girl has to look to. Rhode Island School of Design. Our little Oakridge producing a genuine artist. You must be bursting with pride." "Every day," Benjamin said simply, and meant it. That evening, after the celebrations had ended and they'd returned home, Benjamin and Lily sat on the porch swing. In comfortable silence. The air was warm with early summer, fireflies beginning their nightly dance across the lawn. From somewhere down the street came the sound of children playing a last game before bedtime, their voices carrying in the quiet. "Neighborhood. It doesn't seem real yet," Lily said finally. "That I graduated, that I'm going to college, that everything's working out." "Having second thoughts?" Benjamin asked gently. "Not second thoughts, just moments of disbelief. A year ago, I was completely silent, living in an institution with no clear future, and now—" She gestured expansively, encompassing the house, the adoption, her acceptance to RISD, everything that had transformed in 12 short months. "And now you have choices," Benjamin finished for her. "Options, possibilities. Because of you." Benjamin shook his head. "With me maybe, alongside me. But the strength was always yours, Lily. I just provided a safe place for you to rediscover it." She leaned against his shoulder, a gesture of affection that had become natural between them. "Do you ever think about how close we came to missing this? If you hadn't come to that community center meeting, if I'd been sent to another town." "I try not to think about it," Benjamin admitted. It makes me dizzy contemplating all the small decisions that had to align to bring us here. Ms. Davidson calls that the divine conspiracy of chance. Benjamin smiled. I like that. It does feel like the universe conspired to bring us together, doesn't it? As darkness settled more fully around them, Lily asked a question that caught Benjamin off guard. Do you think Eliza would have liked me? The mention of his late wife no longer brought the sharp pain it once had, but the unexpected nature of the question made Benjamin pause. Liked you? Lily, she would have adored you. Your creativity, your resilience, your quiet determination, those are all qualities she valued deeply. I wish I could have known her. So do I, Benjamin said softly. But you know, in an odd way, I feel like you do know her. Through the house, through my stories, through her art supplies that you've put to such good use. And I think she knows you too, somehow. Lily nodded, seemingly satisfied with this answer. After another comfortable silence, she said, I've been thinking about our road trip. I have some ideas for places to photograph. The conversation shifted to their summer plans, national parks they wanted to visit, quirky roadside attractions they'd read about, the meandering route that would eventually deliver Lily to her new life in Providence. The discussion carried them late into the evening, full of the pleasant anticipation of shared adventure. Later, as Benjamin prepared for bed, he found himself looking at the photograph of Eliza that still held pride of place on his nightstand. You would have loved her, he said quietly to the smiling image. And you would have been so much better at this parenting thing than I am. He could almost hear Eliza's laugh, could imagine her response. You're doing just fine, Ben. Better than fine. You're doing exactly what she needs. The summer unfolded before them like a gift waiting to be unwrapped. The week after graduation, Benjamin and Lily packed his reliable sedan with camping gear, cameras, and the essentials for a cross-country journey. Their first destination was Yellowstone National Park, a 12-hour drive that they broke into. 2 leisurely days of travel. I've never been out of the state before, Lily confessed as they crossed the Wyoming border, mountains rising in the distance like sentinels guarding a different world. Everything feels so vast. Benjamin understood what she meant. After the contained, familiar landscape of Oakridge, the open spaces of the West had a breathtaking, almost overwhelming quality, skies that stretched endlessly, horizons that promised adventure, terrain that changed dramatically with each passing mile. Yellowstone proved magical beyond their expectations. They spent 4 days exploring its geothermal wonders, watching wildlife at dawn and dusk, hiking trails that led to hidden waterfalls and sweeping vistas. Lily's camera rarely left her hands, capturing everything from the grand spectacle of Old Faithful to intimate details of wildflowers pushing through volcanic soil. It's like being on another planet, she said one evening as they sat beside their campfire, the distant sound of wolves adding mystery to the gathering darkness. Beautiful but slightly terrifying in its power. Benjamin nodded, understanding perfectly. Nature at its most primal. Reminds us how small we are in the grand scheme. But not in the bad way, Lily added thoughtfully. More like, it puts our problems in perspective. Makes them seem manageable by comparison. From Yellowstone, they traveled south to Grand Teton National Park, then eastward through the Badlands of South Dakota, where the sculptured rock formations glowed with unearthly colors at sunset. Each location offered new vistas, new photographic opportunities, new conversations as they processed what they were experiencing together. Their relationship deepened through the shared adventure. Without the structured routines of home and school, they discovered new dimensions to each other. Benjamin's unexpected knowledge of constellations, Lily's hidden talent for campfire cooking, their mutual tendency to wake before dawn on days when the light promised to be exceptional. In Chicago, they took a break from camping to stay in a downtown hotel. Visiting the Art Institute, where Lily stood transfixed before Edward Hopper's Nighthawks, studying the play of light and shadow, the expressions of isolated figures sharing space but not connection. It's like he painted loneliness itself, she said softly. Not just people who happen to be alone, but the actual feeling of isolation. Benjamin watched her study the painting, struck by how art spoke to her on a visceral level, how she instinctively understood visual language in ways he could only appreciate intellectually. Her gift was genuine, her passion authentic. Our ISD had chosen well in offering her a place. As they continued eastward, the reality of their journey's purpose, delivering Lily to college, began to assert itself more prominently. Their conversations occasionally touched on practical matters, dorm essentials they should purchase, orientation schedules, the intricacies of campus meal plans. "Are you nervous?" Benjamin asked one evening as they sat outside their tent in the Adirondacks, the last major stopping point before Providence. Lily considered the question seriously, as she did all questions. "Yes," she admitted. "But not in a paralyzing way, more like anticipatory anxiety mixed with excitement. I know it will be challenging, but I also know I can handle it." She looked at him directly. "Are you nervous about being alone again?" Her perceptiveness never failed to surprise him. "A little," he acknowledged. "The house will seem very quiet without you. But I'll adjust. And knowing you're out there thriving, that will make any loneliness worthwhile. You could date, you know," Lily said with unexpected directness. "It's been 4 years since Eliza died. She would want you to be happy." Benjamin nearly choked on his coffee. "That's not something I've considered. Maybe you should. Maureen Delacourt thinks you're quite a catch from what I've overheard." "Maureen? My boss Maureen?" Lily laughed, a sound that still delighted Benjamin every time he heard it, remembering the months of silence that had preceded it. "Yes, that Maureen. She watches you when you're not looking, in a nice way, not a creepy way." Benjamin felt himself blushing like one of his fifth graders. "Can we change the subject, please? To literally anything else?" Lily obliged, but her knowing smile suggested the topic was merely postponed, not abandoned. The final leg of their journey brought them to Providence, Rhode Island in mid-August. Just in time for freshman orientation. The RISD campus sprawled through a historic neighborhood, its buildings a mix of traditional New England architecture and modern design spaces. Benjamin felt a pang of both pride and loss as he watched Lily take it all in, her eyes wide with possibility. They spent 2 days setting up her dormitory room, purchasing textbooks, attending parent-student information sessions. Benjamin met her roommate, a vibrant girl from California who specialized in textile design. Her faculty advisor, a distinguished photographer whose work Lily had admired for years, and various staff members who would form her support system in this new environment. Through it all, Lily moved with growing confidence, asking questions, making connections, beginning to envision herself as part of this creative community. Benjamin watched her blossom in real time, both aching at the impending separation and rejoicing in her readiness for independence. The moment of parting, when it came, was both easier and harder than Benjamin had anticipated. They stood beside his packed car, now emptied of Lily's belongings, in the parking lot outside her dormitory. Around them, other families engaged in similar farewells, mothers crying, fathers offering last-minute advice, students caught between excitement for the future and reluctance to let go of the familiar past. "So," Benjamin said, his voice not quite steady, "this is it." Lily nodded, her own eyes suspiciously bright. "This is it. For now, you'll call or text. Let me know how you're settling in. Every day at first," she promised. "Then maybe every other day once I get busy with classes." Benjamin smiled, recognizing the gentle preparation for inevitable separation. "That sounds perfect. And remember, You can come home anytime. Holidays, long weekends, random Tuesdays when you need a break. Your room stays your room. I know, Dad. She stepped forward and hugged him tightly, her slender frame solid and real in his arms. Thank you for everything. For seeing me when I was invisible, for hearing me when I was silent, for believing in me when I couldn't believe in myself. Benjamin held her close, memorizing the moment, the scent of her shampoo, the warmth of her embrace, the sound of her voice strong and clear where once there had been only silence. Thank you, he whispered back, for saving me right back. When they finally separated, both wiping away tears they'd tried to hide, Benjamin reached into his pocket and pulled out a small wrapped package. One last thing. A going-away gift. Lily unwrapped it carefully to reveal a delicate silver pendant, a camera lens aperture designed as jewelry, simple but meaningful. It's beautiful, she said, immediately putting it on. To remind you that how much light you let in is always your choice, Benjamin explained. And that sometimes the most beautiful images emerge when we're brave enough to open ourselves completely to what's in front of us. Lily touched the pendant, then looked up at him with eyes that held both the shadow of past pain and the light of future promise. I'll remember. And Dad, I'll be home before you know it. As Benjamin drove away, watching her figure grow smaller in his rearview mirror until she turned and walked toward her new life, he felt a profound sense of completion. The journey that had begun with an impulsive offer at a community center meeting had reached its natural destination, not an ending, but a transition to a new chapter for both of them. The road back to Oakridge stretched long before him, but it no longer felt like a return to emptiness. His home would be quieter, certainly, but it would remain alive with the changes Lily had brought. Photographs on the walls, renovated spaces that honored both past and present, the knowledge that he was, and would always be, a father. The mute girl cast out by family had become his greatest blessing, not because she needed saving, but because in allowing him to help her heal, she had healed him in return. Together, they had discovered the most profound truth about human connection, that our broken places, when offered with courage and accepted with love, become the very spaces where light enters to illuminate our shared journey home. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.